Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Titleless Musings, and this is the very last journal with me of 2025. So in this video today, we are going to be making all of my year review spreads. I'm sorry that my voice sounds off today. I don't know why I sound so off, but anyways, we're making my year review spreads. So these are basically just reviews of the media that I've consumed this year. So we're starting here on the left with movies, then we will move into my Apple Music replay, and finally we will end on my books. So these spreads are some of my most favorite to make as we get to the end of the year. I think that this is a really good way of reminding myself what I watched in the year or what I read. I try to be more aware when I'm consuming media. I write a lot of book reviews. I do a lot of journaling about media. So I think that this is a good way for me to kind of wrap up my year. I am going to say right away though that this movie spread is wrong. While I was making this spread, I kept thinking that there was another film that was meant to be in number 2 and Kunk on Life was meant to be my 3rd. And I didn't realize it until I actually finished filming. The picture that I had was Get Out. Get Out was, I watched that in October for spooky season, and that was actually meant to be in position number 2, and then position 3 was Kunk on Life. Nonstop with Liam Neeson is still a good movie. I like thrillers that take place on public transport, but that wasn't actually meant to be on my movies of the year. I printed it to do a review of it, and I got them confused. So yeah, I did have to make a little amendment page in there about actually these movies are wrong. It's supposed to be JFK and then Get Out and then Kunk on Life. That, I don't know why I did that to myself. I think I just get all of these photos confused. You can see over there on the left side, I actually have a little stack of photos and I was keeping them divided with sticky notes. So yeah, sometimes I just get a little bit confused. My spreads for the end of the year, so these movies aren't necessarily ones that came out in 2025, they're just ones that I saw in 2025. And with Get Out and Kunk on Life, those were supposed to be my 5-star watches of the year. Sorry, we haven't gotten to books yet. They were supposed to be my 5-star movies of the year. Other movies I watched Weapons. That was pretty good. It wasn't my favorite, but it was really scary, actually. It did really get me. But then I also watched Heretic this year, which I thought was really good, but I didn't like the ending of it. So that's kind of a brief explanation as to how I picked my movies for the end of the year. I also made a couple of spreads off camera. I did do a top 3 TV shows of the year, even though I think only watched 3 TV shows. But my number 1 for that was the 2nd season of Severance. I really, really like that show on Apple TV+. So that was my top series of the year. I didn't film that spread, even though I did make it on the same day, because there was a word in the 2nd series of the year. It's a series that's on HBO Max. That I wasn't sure if my channel would get, a flag for age restriction, so I figured I would just play it safe and not include it. But yeah, Severance was my top show of the year. Then, what else did I make? Oh, I made my year in pictures, which I always do, but I never film because my pictures show location, but they also show people who don't really want to be on camera, so I don't film my year in pictures, but I did make my year in pictures. And the other thing that I don't do, just because I get bad vibes from it, is my year end and my Hello 2026 letters. Those are kind of wrap-ups of the year that I write in a letter form, and then a sort of ode to the new year of what I'm expecting to happen within the new year, and then I don't read them until that next year. But that goes over some really personal stuff, so I also didn't film that. But those are the only spreads that I made off camera that you won't see. So now we're moving straight into my Apple Music replay, which is basically the Apple Music version of Spotify Wrapped. This was really interesting when this dropped, because I actually had been waiting to film these spreads until that came out, and I was really surprised when it did come out. So this, I think, has actually been, I'm just trying to think back, I think this is the least amount of music that I've listened to in a year, which did surprise me, if I'm being honest, because I read over 9 million words this year, and a lot of that was audiobooks that I'd listened to while I was working out. So I did listen to a lot more audiobooks, and I also just really got back into watching YouTubers that I haven't watched in a very long time. So I was doing a lot of kind of other listening. But with that said, I think when you listen to music, it seems like you're listening to it more than you are, if that makes sense. So I was a bit shocked when it dropped. Here, we're just working on my top 3 artists of 2025. So unlike the movies and the books, these are not personal ranking. This is actually just taken straight from my data. So my top artist is going to be Enhypen, obviously, to nobody's surprise whatsoever. My second top artist was Taylor Swift, which I was surprised about, and I know that I've made like Taylor Swift spreads this year, but I was surprised because I went through like a folklore thing in February where I couldn't stop listening to folklore. But then outside of like the week after that Life of a Showgirl came out where I was listening to it, I really didn't listen to much Taylor Swift. I didn't go back to listen to Life of a Showgirl after my kind of initial listen. So I was surprised that she was so high, that she was in position number 2. And then my third position, I honestly was completely shocked about, because my third top artist of the year was Renee Rapp. And I'm not saying that I'm surprised, because I love her music. Obviously, I listened to enough to put her in third place. But I got really into Cat's Eye this year, and so I was just surprised that I listened to more Renee Rapp than Cat's Eye, because I don't think I started listening to Renee Rapp until October, which means that I was obviously just doing a lot of listening. I was very busy listening to a lot of music. So yeah, I was surprised that Cat's Eye wasn't on here. If I had to have guessed, I would have thought for sure that like my third artist of the year would have been Cat's Eye, and then my second would have been Renee Rapp, but it was just kind of surprising. So on the spread, as you can see, I've put them in place. I'm just adding like my total minutes this year. I did actually just pull up my Apple Music replay while I sit here and voice over. So in position 4 for top artist was Olivia Rodrigo at 246 minutes. Position 5 was Sabrina Carpenter at 221 minutes. And then position 6 was Cat's Eye. So I knew that they would actually be on there. I listened to Cat's Eye for 215 minutes. But yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was strange to me. I was surprised I just didn't listen to some of the artists that I thought I did. But again, data is data, so this is actually what I've been listening to. It was just surprising to me was all. And I feel a little bit bad. I listened to less total minutes this year than I listened to Enhypen alone last year. So Enhypen last year, I think I listened to like 10,000 minutes. And then I only listened to them for like 3,900 minutes, I think, this year. And then like my total minutes were under 10,000. But like I said, to be fair to me, I have been reading a lot of books and listening to a lot of ebooks. I used to listen to a lot of podcasts. I like to play The Sims. So when I used to play The Sims, I would listen to podcasts like the Generation Y podcast, and Welcome to Night Vale. I don't think I ever even came close to catching up to Welcome to Night Vale, but I did listen to it, but I don't listen to a lot of podcasts anymore. So really my 3 main forms of media this year were YouTubers, ebooks, and music. So I was surprised that my music wasn't higher, even though I knew that I was donating more of my time to reading audiobooks. So the way that I have made these spreads this year has also changed. If you've been following me for a while, you know that last year I didn't have this little section down here. This is my honorable mentions section. So I found myself every single year that I would wrap up, there was like media that I wanted to talk about or I wanted to remember that I'd seen that year, but it didn't necessarily make the top 5. So I have a little honorable mentions for 3 extra mentions. In the songs, it basically just brings top 5 to top 8, if I'm honest. So you'll see what came after those top 5. But with books, I wanted to highlight books that meant a lot to me that I read this year, but that just I wouldn't necessarily say were like the top books. I'm really happy with this. I would definitely do this going forward. I think it was a good way for me to use up some of the free real estate on the page, but I also like being able to talk about more media. Now, not only has the spreads changed, the video itself has actually changed. I don't usually film long videos. I know that some of you guys that follow me are also creators, so if you're not, you may not know that YouTube Studio will show you how long on average your videos get watched. So I did have a bit of a tricky time deciding with this because on average, I think it's about 2 minutes that I can hold people on a video, And obviously this is a 31-minute very chatty video. But I wanted to do this for a couple reasons. First of all, I wanted to talk about the media and all that. I wanted to talk about the movies. I specifically want to talk about the books. I'm really excited to talk about the book section and show you guys what I've made for that. So, I kept it long for that, but I also kept it long because I just couldn't, I don't really want to kind of, I don't want to say profit because I don't make money off of it, but I'm not doing this for the views. I'm doing this from the love of the craft. So I thought I would just keep it long. People would watch where they wanted to watch. I hope that you guys find this a little bit interesting because I am having a good time voicing it over. I have to be honest. 31 minutes is a very long time to talk. I do break up, obviously, my dialogue so I can like sip water and breathe oxygen, but I do just sit here and voice the entire videos over from start to finish. So keeping it long this year, I think I really enjoyed that. I think I'll do this again next year. I am, though, if you haven't necessarily been following all of the individual videos I've been putting out, I am planning to do a bit of a hiatus. So I don't know when this one will go up. This may be going up the very last week in December. If not, I'm going to be taking a hiatus from the last week of December and that first full week of January, just because I need time to actually film for you guys, and obviously I'm going to try and spend some of my holiday off camera doing things with my friends and family. So you probably won't really notice because I do upload all my videos ahead of time so that they go live, but if you do notice, or if you're like, where on earth has Titleless been, I am on a holiday break. Speaking, though, of the new year, I do already have some videos planned that I'm really excited to share with you guys. So I want to, in 2026, I want to do a second season of Musings on journaling. I got a lot of really helpful comments on that, and I think that one, it was just a really good way for me to kind of figure out how I could talk about journaling and what my kind of niche is. So I think probably in the summer of 2026 is when I'll have time to do that, but I want to do ones on like tutorials on how to actually create journals, how to make spreads, that kind of thing. In terms of what I'm planning for the kind of beginning of the year, one of my biggest things is I want to do a book haul for you guys. I have unhauled a lot of books. I have donated some to little free libraries, and then other ones I've sold for credit at a little local bookstore, and then I've gotten different books with that store credit. So I've really just spent the year kind of hauling books, and I've done it in a way that I think is, I want to talk about from kind of an anti-consumerism perspective, because I've really tried to not buy books off of Amazon. So I want to do a little book haul for you guys. I'm just currently waiting until the new year because I'm doing a book advent calendar. So every Wednesday in December, I'm opening my book advent calendar, and my book advent calendar is actually just 5 blind dates with a book from Second and Charles. So that's why obviously I haven't posted that yet, but I do want to do a book haul and just kind of talk about my thoughts on booktube and all that. I don't want to become a booktuber. I do want to have more videos that focus on reading, but there's a lot of things that I have issues with booktube that I just thought that maybe I could provide a bit of an interesting perspective on. So I'm gonna do that. The other thing I am really excited to talk about and share with you guys within the new year is a difference in how I'm going to be journaling. So in 2026, for the very first time since I started daily journaling in 2020, I am actually going to be changing the way that I journal. And I'm going to be doing that by implementing a digital journal. So obviously I'm not going to go too deep into in this video. I'll just give you a little teaser. The physical journal is not going anywhere. I will still make spreads. I will still film and post videos with my physical journal, and I'll still write in my physical journal every day. But I'm going to be picking up digital journaling on my iPad, and I've actually started in 2025. It's been helpful to make spreads where I just don't have the money to get more printer paper, so I do it on an app so that I can have all my pictures. I'm also going to be using it for yearly trackers. So again, I'll go more into depth in that video once I get it uploaded in the new year. The other reason that I really wanted to share that with you guys is because I went through a battle trying to figure out what app that I wanted to use. I know a lot of people on YouTube are going to tell you that GoodNotes is the way to go. I found a lot of issues with GoodNotes. I didn't end up buying the $30 lifetime subscription. I ended up buying a $6 lifetime subscription to a different app that I can store on device. So I will talk about that a little bit more in the new year. Again, I just thought I would give you a little taste of what is coming. For the rest of the year, though, I plan on kind of just keeping at it. I like making these spreads. I think this year has really been a learning curve to me, because even though I've long preached on my channel that your journal doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be aesthetic, it just has to be yours, I really had a bit of a hard time with that in my first year of YouTube, and I can say that now, you know, looking on, knowing that I'm going to be 2 years into this next May, but I really wanted to be able to appeal to a lot of people. But I just have realized this year it's really just been the honest stuff. I mean, when I posted my Fate and Soul, or was it Walk the Line and Go Yang? I don't remember. I posted one this year where I basically just came out and said, I think that this is a waste of money if you're buying this. And we had a lot of really, really good conversations. So I want to keep doing that. I haven't been able to buy on Weavers very much. If you are in the US, you know how the prices are going right now. So, yeah, I will keep at what I can keep at, and I hope that you're looking forward to the new content. But now the content that I'm looking forward to is here. This is the start of all of my book year reviews. So we're going to start with this book series page. I wasn't sure if I was going to make this or not, because I technically only have 2 series that I'm like actively reading. And there's some series where I've read like the first book but not the rest. Good example of that, I tried to read some historical romance over the summer period, and one of those books that I read, or sorry, I listened to the audiobook of, was Ever Yours, Annabelle, and I didn't like the narrator. I have a hard time saying that because I know that the narrators and the voice actors work so tirelessly. It is a job I could never ever do. But if I am being honest, that narrator made me not want to continue the series, which is why it was difficult to figure out what I was going to put on this list. So we're going to start with ACOTAR. ACOTAR is a series I have avoided like the plague since it came out. I'm not a fantasy reader, but I do want to read more fantasy because there's some books that sound really, really good. Like, I want to read Fourth Wing. I actually own, what is it called, Quicksilver? I bought it at a used bookstore, the first book, but I haven't read it yet. I did also buy Powerless. Haven't read that yet either. All of this comes around to say that I got recommended ACOTAR as a good place to start. So I finally read it after all these years, and it's not kind of what I was expecting. It's both not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but also criminally overhyped. Before everybody comes at me with pitchforks, I don't mean that it's overhyped as in it's not good. It is enjoyable. The further that you go along, I think you enjoy it more. For me, Wings and Ruin, which is book 3, that has just been like my favorite in the series so far. I didn't really connect with Mist and Fury the way that I think everybody else did, but I cried so hard at the end of Wings and Ruin. I was bawling over an orange. Oh, I was so upset. But I just think that it does get a lot of hype, and I think, to me, that hype isn't necessarily justified. There's things about the books that are well worth the hype. I think that the character development, the emotional development, particularly, phenomenal. But there's other things about the series that really bother me that I really can't be doing with. That's where, like I said, I think it's a good series. I do think it's worth a read just to check out if you're interested, but I wouldn't necessarily give it the same high praise that I think everybody else has. I actually just finished reading, what is it, Frost and Starlight is the novella. I finished that last night. I didn't enjoy that at all. That was kind of a disappointment coming from Wings and Ruin, so I am hoping that Silver Flames will be better. That's the last one I have to read. But that's enough on ACOTAR, because we are going to my second series, my absolute beloved Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon by Beth Brower. I read this completely on a whim. I saw that my library was getting all these audiobooks in, and I just thought, you know, why not? Why not pick one up and give it a read? I didn't like the first book. The second book on is pretty good. Books 6 and 7 are so spectacular. I love book 6. But 7 as well was really, really good. This is a series, the Emma Lyon series, that's worth pushing through. They're not very long. I listened to them only on audiobook. I didn't read any of them. I would put my life on the line for Niall Pierce. I thought book 8 was the end of the series, and I was really disappointed in that one. But it's not the end of the series. There is a 9th book coming. I would say that I think the 8th book is the worst in the series. But that is, again, completely my opinion. You don't have to agree on that. I don't think it's a bad read. I think you should read to catch up to where you are now. Like I said, I listened to all 8. But in my opinion, books 6 and 7 are just stunning. And then the other series is Heartstrings, which technically I think is only a duet. There may be more. The second book in the series doesn't come out until 2026, but First Time Caller was my very first romance audiobook. I also listened to Done and Dusted. I haven't gone back to read more of the Rebel Blue Ranch series because I did not really vibe with the male character in that at all. I may try and persevere in the new year, but Heartstrings ended up as my 3rd series of the year because First Time Caller was so cute. I think, like, position 86 at my library for one copy of And Now Back to You, which comes out in the new year. But yeah, that is my series, and now we're moving on to my DNFs and 1 stars. This, I am going to put a very obligatory, these are just my opinions. If you enjoyed these books, please do not let my opinions on these take away from your enjoyment. And don't let them take away if you've been wanting to read them from reading them. I'm going to give you why I ranked these as DNFs or 1 stars. But again, completely opinion-based, and I just wanted to put that out there that my lack of enjoyment of these books should not spoil your enjoyment of them. I have a really hard time DNFing books because I always feel guilty about it. There's no reason to feel guilty about DNFing books. Sometimes you just don't connect. But that's why I did make a DNF or 1 star, and I'll talk through it while I make the spread. So my very first DNF, as in the earliest in a book that I DNF'd, was Shadow Ticket by, I think his name is pronounced Thomas Pynchon. I heard that book is one, or that author, sorry, is one where you either love it or you hate it. I couldn't get past page 2. That writing style did not connect with me. I think that the kind of noir, gritty feel of the writing works for the synopsis of the story, but it was not for me. I couldn't persevere. I knew that I couldn't even get past the first chapter without looking up, is it okay to DNF a book? So I called that on page 2. The second book that I read more of, but not as much, was Bonding. This one I DNF'd, I think, about chapter 8, I think? It was something like that. I did try to persevere on this one because I thought it was going to be, like, a really interesting one that calls into question, like, the lives of the elite kind of thing, but I didn't connect with it. I couldn't get into it. It was a struggle to read. I think it was just the writing style and the main character, I couldn't stand, so I gave up on that. Book 3, as you can see, is Amanda by H.S. Cross. I read most of chapter 2, and it's only 3 chapters. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I had no idea, so I called it quits. And then the 4th book is a 1-star read, and that's Happiness and Love by Zoe Dubno. This is a book that is told without line breaks, paragraph breaks, or chapter breaks, and it feels like it. It is one of the only way that I could describe how it felt to read it is you read it feeling like there was a point that was going to be made, and it was going to be some earth-shattering, world, renowned opinion, and I just didn't get that from it. In my opinion, it really came off as an author trying to use style to cover up the fact that they don't have much to say on a topic, and it was a book that I didn't vibe with. I do think that the long chapters were an issue for me as well, or specifically the fact that there were no paragraph breaks. It's hard to read something like that, and I don't hate long chapters at all. I'm actually reading a physical copy of the book, or of a book called The Widow Killer, and that is really, really long, but it also keeps you engaged. Happiness and Love didn't. I read that out of spite. I finished it to spite review it. So yeah, those were my 4 DNFs and 1 stars. But now we are on the kind of big one of the year, and this is my top 5 books of 2025. It's going to take me a while to talk about each, so I'm going to go ahead and start now. My very first book of the year, my top book of the year, is Buckeye by Patrick Ryan. I know that this didn't get very high remarks on the Goodreads book of the year thing. This book destroyed me. I love historical fiction. Historical fiction is my main genre that I read. I do hate the saying, though, the whole, oh, I wish I could read this book for the first time. I hate that saying, but I would use it here. Buckeye is one of those ones where I do wish I could read it again, or read it for the first time again. I liked it so much I went out and bought the Barnes & Noble copy. I drove up to Barnes & Noble and got a copy of it. It's a really beautiful family drama story. It's got interconnecting timelines, which I really liked. I just think that it was a really beautiful read. It's one of those where you almost convince yourself that you're reading a memoir because of it. It was really, really good. I just think that if I could kind of sell it to you in one way, it would be if you don't like historical fiction, but you like emotional character development, Buckeye is the one for you. It really is focused on the characters. It's focused on their kind of world, their lives, how they connect. And I like the fact that it doesn't shy away from some of the grittier, more emotional parts of life. So that is my book of the year. That is my top book of the year. I loved reading Buckeye, and I do wish I could read it for the first time again. Book 2 is actually a surprise knockout. I actually finished reading it the day before I made the spread. So book 2 is Best Offer Wins by Marissa Cascino, I believe is how you pronounce that name. Best Offer Wins is so funny. So Best Offer Wins is a satirical look at buying a house. And it's told from this woman who is, from the perspective of this woman, Margot, and she is completely unhinged. She is like, she stalks a couple, there is murder in the story. It's basically how far would you go to get the house of your dreams. It is one of the best books I've read this year. Like I said, it stole my second spot, because I actually had a different book for spot 2, sorry. But Best Offer Wins is one of the best books I've read this year. I love the sub-niche of women becoming completely unhinged. Definitely worth a read, although it is a bit gory, so if you have a hard time with that, please check the trigger warnings. My third book of the year is another one that I actually own. I bought at Barnes & Noble, and it is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is a really interesting kind of speculative fiction book. I say speculative fiction. It basically talks about like these women that are trapped in these cages underground, and then they come up and are living in the world. It talks about like isolation and things like that. It's a really, really fascinating book, but it's a really hard read. If I was any older than I was, or any younger to be fair, I don't think I would have vibed with it, but it's a beautiful book, and it's one that I think should be required reading. Palm Meridian is book 4 on my list. This book is basically a queer retirement community and a lesbian's end-of-life story. Or, I think, is she bisexual? I can't remember. She's either bisexual or she's a lesbian, but it's a really, really, really sad story. The end made me cry. I listened to it on an audiobook and the narrator was phenomenal. But it's a story of love and loss and retirement and the things that we would do differently in life, because the book is her last day of life, is the whole story. So it's really, really sad. And then Emily Henry's Funny Story is my 5th book of the year. This is the only Emily Henry book I've ever rated 5 stars. I read everything else she wrote, but Funny Story got me into reading contemporary romance. And Daphne and Miles are, as far as I'm concerned, my OTP. I love Daphne and Miles. I think I like the fact that Daphne's a librarian. The other thing that I like is the whole premise of the story told in the synopsis is their significant others date each other, so they date each other, and I just think that that was a really fun premise. I'm sure that in the grand scheme of romance it's not that original, but it was new to me and I really enjoyed it. Then we go down to my honorable mentions. So my first honorable mention is Colin Gets Promoted and Dooms the World. This is so funny. This book basically, this guy basically works for like the building of hell. And there's like fallen angels and demons and weird little creatures who are just Black Mist. The Black Mist character, he is my favorite. That is my man right there. I love him. Really, really good book, really funny. I don't think I actually laughed so hard at a book this year as I did Colin Gets Promoted, so definitely recommend that one. She's a Lamb, another one that you should check trigger warnings for. This is a bit like Best Offer Wins. It's a woman going completely unhinged, only this time she is in theater. She wants to be the lead in The Sound of Music, and she will stop at nothing to get her way, and will do some pretty crazy things, and I love that niche. My final honorable mention of the year is The Guest in Room 120. This is a book that follows two different timelines. It follows Jane Stanford in 1905 and her death in Honolulu, and then it follows a writer in present times who is staying in the same room where Jane Stanford died. It's really interesting. If you want to read this, I would recommend not reading anything about the case until you read this. It's historical fiction, but it follows a real character. Like I said, it's really about Jane Stanford's death. And this is good if you like Mariah Fredericks and Kate Quinn and all that. I really, really enjoyed that one. But now, 30 minutes later, we are coming to the end of this video. I'm just writing my last little review on Funny Story, and then we are going to jump straight into a quick look at all the spreads. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I really enjoyed getting to talk with you guys about all these forms of media. If you did enjoy, please do remember to like and subscribe because it really does help the channel. Let me know what your yearly ratings were. What was your favorite shows, your favorite movies? How was your Spotify Wrapped? And definitely drop book recommendations. I am always looking for book recommendations, so if you had any that you read in 2025 that you really enjoyed, let me know in the comments down below. But I will end this here. Have a lovely rest of your 2025, and I will see you next year.